Tomorrow morning, when your alarm goes off, something is going to happen inside your chest in the first 30 seconds that most people would never connect to cardiovascular danger. You will sit up, you will reach for your phone, you might head straight into the shower. None of it feels unusual, none of it feels risky. But according to decades of cardiology research, those first 30 seconds after waking are statistically the most dangerous window of your entire day for your heart, and almost nobody is telling you why. I want to be completely honest with you up front. Heart attacks do not only visit people who eat poorly or avoid the gym, they strike marathon runners, they strike people who never miss a medication, they strike people whose last physical came back perfectly clean, and the overwhelming majority of them happen between roughly 6 in the morning and noon, specifically within those first few hours after waking. That is not a coincidence, that is biology. And by the end of this video, you will never think about your morning routine the same way again. My name is Dr. Thomas, and over the last 22 years working with cardiovascular patients and adults over 50, I have watched people transform their heart risk simply by changing the first 5 minutes of their day. Today, I want to walk you through exactly what happens inside your body the instant you wake up, why the morning hours are genuinely the deadliest window for your heart, and 5 specific habits that most people perform on autopilot every single morning, habits that quietly stack the deck against them. Stay with me all the way through because the protective protocol at the end is the part I want everyone you love to hear. And before we start, drop a quick comment telling me your age and where you are watching from. I read them, I respond when I can, and it helps me know who is on the other side of this screen. To understand the danger, you have to first understand what has been happening inside you all night. Most people picture sleep as a kind of shutdown, the body going quiet, the heart taking a break. That is not what is actually happening. While you sleep, your body runs an enormous maintenance operation. Your brain is sorting memories, your immune system is patching tissue, and your heart is beating at its calmest, slowest pace of the entire 24-hour cycle. Your blood pressure drops, your pulse falls, and because you have been lying flat and still for hours, your blood becomes slightly thicker and a little slower moving, almost like cold honey settling in a jar overnight. Everything is quiet, everything is peaceful, and then the alarm goes off. And in one heartbeat, your body goes from serene to full red alert. This is what researchers call the cortisol awakening response. Your adrenal glands dump cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream, your heart rate jumps. Your vessels tighten, your blood pressure can surge by as much as 25% in just a few minutes. And that slightly sluggish, thickened blood from the night before now has to race through arteries that have just clamped down. Thick blood, narrow pipes, rising pressure. That is the exact internal environment in which clots form. And clots, as most of you already know, are what cause the overwhelming majority of heart attacks. A well-cited paper in the journal Circulation reported that heart attacks are between 60 and 70% more likely to strike in the morning hours than at any other time of day. That is not a small number. That is a flashing warning sign researchers have been pointing at for decades. Now here is where your choices come in. That morning storm, the cortisol, the pressure spike, the clot tendency is biology. You cannot erase it, but you absolutely can control whether your behavior softens it or dangerously amplifies it. So let me walk you through the 5 morning habits that amplify it, starting with the one almost everybody does in the very first second. The first mistake is sitting up or leaping out of bed the moment you hear your alarm. This sudden shift from lying flat to vertical triggers something called orthostatic dysregulation, where your blood pressure swings dramatically because gravity has just changed the rules. Blood that was evenly distributed across your body now has to be pumped uphill, and your heart, already dealing with a cortisol surge, is asked to compensate instantly. Picture it like starting the engine of an old truck that has been sitting out in the cold all night, and before it has a chance to warm up, you slam it into 5th gear. For a younger heart with flexible vessels, the engine survives. For anyone over 40, especially those with even mild arterial stiffness, that rapid demand can cause something terrible. A plaque, a piece of fatty debris that had been sitting quietly on a coronary artery wall for years bothering no one, can rupture under that sudden pressure. Once it ruptures, the body rushes clotting factors to the site. A clot forms. And if that clot is big enough to block the artery, you have a heart attack unfolding right there in your bedroom before you have even brushed your teeth. I remember a patient I worked with named Gerald, 64, a retired electrician from a small town outside Denver. Gerald had been jumping out of bed the same way for 35 years. His wife found him collapsed in the bathroom one morning after his usual leap and sprint routine. He survived, thank God, but the cardiologist who treated him said plainly that if he had just paused and breathed for 30 seconds, the outcome might have been completely different. The second mistake is dehydration. You have been asleep for 6 to 8 hours. During that time, every exhale carried moisture out of your body. Your skin released water quietly through the night. By the time your alarm rings, your blood volume has dropped and your blood has become thicker and more concentrated, exactly the kind of blood that clots more easily. And what do most people do? They skip water entirely and reach straight for coffee, which is a diuretic that actually pulls more water out of them. For an hour or more after waking, their blood remains at peak viscosity, their pressure remains elevated from cortisol, and their body is marinating in the perfect internal conditions for a cardiac event. A woman I once counseled named Marjorie, 71, from the outskirts of Tampa, used to tell me she never drank water before her afternoon break. When we reviewed her labs, her morning hemoconcentration markers were visibly elevated. Once we changed that one habit, the difference on her next panel was undeniable. Think of dry morning blood like oatmeal left uncovered overnight, thick and gluey, resisting every attempt to move smoothly. A single glass of water starts thinning that oatmeal back into a flowing stream within minutes. The third mistake happens right after reaching for the phone. Think about what occurs the second you pick up that screen. Before you have taken a sip of water, before your nervous system has transitioned out of sleep, you are hit with emails, alerts, headlines, unread messages, a flood of urgency. Your still groggy brain interprets all of that as potential threat. Your stress response, already primed from cortisol, fires a second wave, another adrenaline spike, another tightening of the vessels. Researchers at the University of California documented that people who check their phones within the first few minutes of waking show elevated cortisol levels not just in the morning, but throughout the entire rest of the day. Your heart is now running on stress hormones for hours longer than it needs to, simply because of what you looked at in those first sleepy minutes. Your cardiovascular system cannot tell the difference between being chased by a wild animal and reading an alarming headline. To your heart, it is the same hormonal fire. Stack that on top of the cortisol surge, on top of the dehydration, on top of the fast stand-up, and you have a genuinely dangerous internal climate. If you are finding this useful so far, type the word morning in the comments. It helps this video reach more people who need to hear it. The fourth mistake is something you would never associate with heart health, the way you are breathing. Most people, especially those who wake up stressed or rush out of bed, immediately fall into shallow chest-only breathing. This keeps your nervous system trapped in the sympathetic fight or flight mode. Your blood oxygen does not climb the way it should after a night of rest, and your body, sensing low oxygen, tells your vessels to constrict even harder. Blood pressure climbs, the heart works harder. Meanwhile, slow, deep breaths do the exact opposite. They activate the vagus nerve, the main highway of the calming parasympathetic system. A few deep belly breaths can measurably bring down that morning pressure surge. Think of the vagus nerve like the emergency brake on a runaway train. You do not need to pull it hard, you just need to engage it. 3 to 5 slow inhales right there in bed can be the difference between a manageable morning and a dangerous one. The fifth mistake is temperature shock, and this one has two faces. The first is going from a warm bed straight into a cold environment, feet hitting a freezing floor, a chilly bathroom, a draft from an open window. The cold causes your already tightened vessels to clamp down even further, pushing your blood pressure to levels that can be genuinely unsafe. In colder months, morning heart attack rates climb noticeably, and cold-induced vasoconstriction is a big reason why. The other face is the hot shower taken immediately after waking. Hot water causes the opposite reaction. Your vessels dilate rapidly, pulling blood toward the skin and away from your core. Your pressure drops, your heart scrambles to compensate by pumping harder and faster, and for anyone with even mild undiagnosed coronary disease, that sudden demand can trigger what cardiologists call demand ischemia, when the heart muscle is begging for more oxygen than the narrowed arteries can deliver. It is a direct pathway to a heart attack. This does not mean you need to stop showering in the morning. It means timing and temperature matter far more than anyone ever told you. A warm shower, not scorching, taken at least 20 minutes after you are up and have had water, is a much safer option. Now, I have to be straight with you about who is most at risk. If you are over 45, if you have any form of high blood pressure, even if it is well controlled, if you have diabetes, if you smoke or used to, if you carry extra weight around your midsection, or if heart disease runs in your family, your cardiovascular system has less reserve, your arteries are likely stiffer. And there is a concept in cardiology called vulnerable plaque, cholesterol-rich deposits with fragile, thin caps that sit quietly inside your arteries without blocking much blood flow. That is exactly why they do not always show up clearly on standard stress tests. They are quiet, they are hidden, and they are dangerously sensitive to the mechanical stress of a morning pressure spike. When that surge hits one, the cap can crack, a clot forms with terrifying speed, and an otherwise symptom-free person becomes a cardiac emergency in minutes. Research suggests this is the underlying mechanism in a significant portion of sudden cardiac deaths, and the most common trigger is waking up in the morning. Now, the good news, because none of this is meant to frighten you, it is meant to prepare you. The morning storm is unavoidable, but its consequences are almost entirely preventable. So here is the protocol, built entirely on solid cardiovascular research. When your alarm goes off, do not move. Lie still for a full 60 seconds. Take 5 slow breaths. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, letting your belly rise. Hold for 1, then exhale through your mouth for 6 counts. This single 60-second practice wakes the vagus nerve, softens the cortisol response, and buys your cardiovascular system the time it needs to catch up with you. Then bring yourself to sitting slowly and sit there another 30 seconds. Let your blood pressure find its footing. Stand only when your body has caught up. This is not laziness. This is cardiovascular intelligence. Before coffee, before the phone, before anything else, drink 2 full glasses of room temperature water, about 400 to 600 milliliters, with a small pinch of mineral-rich salt like Himalayan pink or a clean sea salt. Not ice-cold water, because cold can trigger a vagal response that slows the heart in unpredictable ways, particularly in people with underlying rhythm sensitivities. That tiny bit of sodium, well under 1/8 of a teaspoon, helps your cells actually hold on to the water rather than passing it straight through. This is not the same thing as eating a salty diet all day. It is a targeted morning intervention your cells genuinely need after a night of kidney filtration. Think of it as refilling a dry sponge. Plain water simply runs off. Slightly mineralized water soaks in. On coffee, I am not going to tell you to give it up. I drink mine too. But the timing matters enormously. Wait 60 to 90 minutes after waking. Your cortisol is already handling the job of alerting you. Adding caffeine on top of peak cortisol does not give you more alertness. It gives you more cardiovascular stress. Let your cortisol crest and begin its natural decline, and then enjoy your coffee. You will actually feel the lift more clearly, because caffeine provides a genuine boost rather than just adding noise to an already overloaded hormonal system. On exercise, the first 15 to 20 minutes of any morning movement should be genuinely gentle, a slow walk, light stretching, easy yoga. A study published in the European Heart Journal found that intense exercise performed immediately after waking was associated with a significantly higher rate of cardiac events compared to the same exercise performed later in the day. Warm up the entire cardiovascular system, not just your muscles. And within 30 minutes of waking, step outside and let morning sunlight touch your eyes and your skin for even a few minutes. Natural light triggers nitric oxide production in your skin, which relaxes blood vessels and lowers pressure, your body's own natural antihypertensive. It also sets the timing of your circadian rhythm, which directly regulates the magnitude of tomorrow morning's cortisol response. A man named Richard, 73, from a small coastal town in Maine, told me his morning blood pressure readings dropped measurably within 3 weeks of simply stepping outside for 10 minutes after waking. No new medication, just light. And finally, consider the alarm itself. A loud, jarring buzzer triggers a measurable spike in cortisol and adrenaline significantly larger than waking gradually to a softer tone or a gentle sunrise lamp. Your nervous system transitions far more smoothly when the wake-up is gradual. A patient of mine, Donna, 68, from rural Vermont, switched from a shrill alarm to a sunrise simulator after her second hypertensive scare. She told me her morning felt like stepping into a warm room instead of being shoved into a cold one. One more thing before I let you go. Heart attacks often give warning signs that people either miss or dismiss. Unusual deep fatigue in the days before that does not resolve with rest. mild discomfort in the chest, jaw, left arm, or upper back that comes and goes, unexpected shortness of breath during ordinary activities, a vague feeling that something is simply not right. Do not push through these. They are your cardiovascular system sending distress signals. The heart attack caught before it happens is the heart attack that never happens. If you or someone you love is experiencing any of these in combination, that is not a wait-and-see situation. That is a call your doctor today situation. Your heart has beaten for you every second of your life without asking for anything in return. It has never taken a day off. It has never called in sick. It has adapted to every demand you have ever placed on it quietly, faithfully, without complaint. The least you can do is give it 30 seconds of grace in the morning, 30 seconds of stillness and breath before the world rushes in, because those 30 seconds might genuinely be the most important 30 seconds of your entire day. If this video helped you even a little, please hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and share this with someone you love. A parent who rockets out of bed every morning, a friend who runs on 3 hours of sleep and black coffee, a spouse who has never slowed down a day in their life. Because this information is not just useful, it could genuinely be life-saving, and that is not an exaggeration. Hit the like button if this was useful. Drop a comment below telling me which of these 5 morning mistakes you recognize in your own routine, and let me know whether you are going to try the protocol tomorrow. I read every single comment. I am Dr. Thomas. Protect your mornings, protect your heart. I will see you in the next one.